Our first presenter is Catherine McLaughlin. Ms. McLaughlin is a natural resource specialist with the Texas Optimization Program and Response Team in the Emergency Preparedness and Response section. She has a BS in Environmental Science from the University of Texas at Austin through the Jackson School of Geosciences. Catherine started with the TCEQ since 2016 as an environmental investigator in the Beaumont Regional Office. She joined the TOPRT.
Texas Optimization Program and Response Team.
Thank you. In 2018, and currently serves as the Cross-Connection Control Program Coordinator, assisting water systems and customers with implementing Backflow to protect public health. Please welcome Catherine McLaughlin.
Awesome. Woo. Well, thank you for the introduction. Apologies for the acronyms. But again, my name is Catherine McLaughlin. I am the Cross-Connection Control Program Coordinator with TCEQ. You may see me referred to as the TCEQ Backflow lady or that person who drank too much coffee and then I called her and she scared me. But we're not here to talk about me or my caffeine addiction. We are here to talk about cross-connection control and specifically backflow programs. So this isn't going to get into the nitty-gritty of the technical stuff, but I do want to just talk about some of the basics and just the bare minimums that TCEQ requires, as well as some of the best practices to, you start off with the minimum at, do everything TCEQ says, that's a C, right? You want to get an A+, right? So we're going to go into some best practices to help support you and your program. So first we're going to be talking about local authority, so your ordinances, your customer service agreements, things you need, and the things you can use to go above and beyond. We're going to talk about customer service inspection programs, when they're needed, et cetera. We're going to also talk about backflow prevention assembly testing, testing programs following up at least annually on certain cases. We're also going to go into some other considerations as well as some resources available to you, mostly free with a few paid items. But the goal of this presentation is to learn about the basics and best practices of building a program. This is a very dense presentation and it's going to go fairly quick. It is kind of operating if you kind of have some familiarity with what backflow is and some of our basic definitions like health hazards and non-health hazards. But we're also going to have some questions on some of the panels to indicate, if anything, I want you to think about how this information, how your system is doing, and how this information you could take home and improve your program at home. But first, before we get started, why do we want to bother with a cross-connection control program? Well, I could say it's required in the rules and leave it there, but that's not really what you want to hear, right? Cross-connection control is an issue. We want water to go from point A at the plant to point B at our customer's tap, but that doesn't always happen. We have line breaks, service events, and hydraulic pressures change, and water moves where it wants to go. Everyone has a role to protect from backflow within their system. Actual and potential hazards are real. I bet you can find some in this room right now. You got, okay, I don't see any fire extinguishers, but that's okay. They're everywhere, they're out there, and they exist. And our goal, through having an effective backflow program, we want to reduce a backflow event's frequency, duration, and severity. We want to protect public health with that, as well as maintain consumer confidence, because at the end of the day, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So authority, this is the stuff that's going to let us run an effective program. So let's go into some of the rules first. Fall asleep if you need to, not the most exciting legalese, but I just want to talk and kind of outline a few of the important things here. So public water systems must adopt an adequate ordinance, regulations, or service agreement, a written legal powered something with provisions for proper enforcement to ensure that neither cross connections nor unacceptable plumbing practices are permitted. And I just want to outline that provisions for proper enforcement. If you ban practices but can't really follow up and say, hey customer, we're going to cut you off, you can't do that, then what authority do you have? This rule continued. If you have any question as to who's responsible for the cross-connection control situation in a particular area, if sanitary control of the distribution system does not reside with the purveyor, the entity retaining sanitary control shall be responsible for establishing and enforcing adequate regulations in this regard. I did a technical assistance visit where there was a cement factory that would not allow the water purveyor on site to do a customer service inspection. They signed that agreement that at that meter and after their meter, they're on their own. They had to register as their own water supply. They have to go through that whole rigmarole and have their own inspections. But just as in summary, we need to make sure we have regulations with an enforcement clause to make sure we can actually roll out and enforce these things, as well as we need to ban those unacceptable plumbing practices. So what are some of the avenues available? Really basic stuff, right? We have customer service agreements. In some cases, water supplies like investor-owned utilities are limited to these and what we have in our rules and regulations. You'll mostly end up dealing with these with new customers, right? The people that actually have to sign them, submit them, as opposed to having one that's been lost maybe 10 years ago. Plumbing ordinances and regulations, I know municipalities, you're gonna have that power, and adopting a plumbing code can be a part of that, though that is not the end-all be-all, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But some of the critical elements that need to be in these things are a lead ban. Do you have the most up-to-date lead restrictions? We keep getting updates to the lead and copper rule, right? Does it have an ability to enforce? Finally, can you get into that property? Is there a right of entry? If your agreement does not allow for an inspector to go on site and inspect everything, if it does not allow a backflow tester to get on site and actually get things tested, then what good is it gonna do? But I just want you to meditate on, think about some of the, I guess, how this information already applies to you, right? What kinds of rules do your systems have? Do you have just a customer service agreement? Do you have an ordinance? Do you have both of them? None of them? Does it have all these required elements for what you do have? Are these local rules up to date? Again, lead restrictions keep getting updated. We've updated the sample, that's gonna be the sample customer service agreement in our rules and text administrative code is years up to date too. I see a lot of old forms floating out on the internet posted on some websites. Who could help update these things? Is it gonna be your city council folks? Is it gonna be a manager? Who's gonna need to know what needs to be in here so we can get this thing updated? So best practices, adopting a specific plumbing code. So I mentioned, great part of an ordinance, adopting IPC, UPC, 2015, 2018, 2021, I think 2024 is gonna come out soon. But it's not enough on its own. So it's banning all of your unacceptable plumbing practices, specifying, okay, there needs to be stainless steel accoutrement here on our plumbing system. But that's it. It doesn't have any enforcement ability. You go out there, you say what's banned, now what are you gonna do about it if you see something wrong with that? So just keep in mind that it's great to have a plumbing code to reference, but you need enforcement powers to fall back on. It's always good practice to reference approved assemblies in your rules. So lists, we don't test any backflow preventers. I'm not an engineer and I do not have that capability, but you have a bunch of other organizations, third-party certifiers that actually do these testing. So USC has a list of approved assemblies they've tested rigorously. ASSE does as well. Actually, if you have an adopted plumbing code, there are rules in there as part of those banning unacceptable plumbing practices. You have to actually use something that has been certified by a third party already. So don't go buying no backflows off of AliExpress. That is, we do not want to see those. So tailoring your rules, right? So this authority document is our opportunity to take what the TCEQ has and make it our own. So you can tailor your regulations for some of those unique hazards that you may have in your system, right? So I just got a couple of examples over here. Think of some unique challenges that your system runs into. What are some really weird connections, some really common things that you just might just have a second guess and kind of think, what is actually needed here? So stock tanks. We live in Texas. Who loves their beef, right? Yeah, there you go. So watering troughs are considered health hazards within our hazard appendix, right? So we want to make sure they're protected with a PVB, a pressure vacuum breaker, an air gap, or a reduced pressure principal backflow prevention assembly. We need something there. When it comes to air gaps, that's easy to go around, right? You install the air gap, see in a year, right? And then you get a hose in there, you come back, and it's been sitting in there since the day you left. Those things can be easily, things inside of a connection can be easily changed, right? So we want to make sure, maybe we want to include in our authority document that maybe if you have one of these types of backflow preventers or an air gap installed there, maybe you want to come and inspect following up at a later date, maybe every year, every other year, periodically. Industrial facilities. I know my friends on the Gulf Coast have these problems. You've got all your chemical plants, you're producing your methyl ethyl death, your benzenes, your toluenes, all that fun stuff, and a lot of intense water use. Would you want those places inspected a little more frequently following, say, construction? Include that in your authority document. I have both the fortune and misfortune of living in Central Texas. There is just construction left and right. Living in North Austin, there's no green space anymore, right? Because there's just rampant construction, new apartment complexes left and right. But if you see that kind of stuff, we know that construction sites are considered health hazards. You got a lot of cement mixing and whatever other washdown materials and whatever stuff you don't want to drink that's out there. Would it make sense to go into detail on renting an RP for your hydrant system? We talk about this in our sample plumbing ordinance, but I just want you to think, how can these regulations best address what's in your system? So if you don't have anything, I know I mentioned if you have one of them, great. Lots of other options, great. If you don't have anything, that's okay. You don't have to start alone from square one. We have a couple of templates available online. Our sample customer service agreement, kept up to date, all those recent lead things, and these are going to be available on our website as well as in some of our regulatory guidance documents. Also on the far side, we have a sample ordinance. It's an exciting government Mad Lib. Punch in your information and kind of go through. This enforces adopting a certain plumbing code. This enforces adopting lists of approved assemblies. There's also a hydrant checkout process that's included towards the end of that document. So you're not alone if you don't have anything. It's okay. But catching up to regulations, what about some existing customers that might not be under our purview, right? As if they're folks where you dictate what your water supply is required to do as part of an ordinance, but they live outside of city limits. Or what if there's folks you've been serving, Joe Schmo down the street for 30 years, but you never got a customer service agreement from him? How are you going to go out there and actually enforce your program with no authority? Again, kind of touching on that. In certain cases, the Public Utility Commission does prohibit cutoffs for refusal of a current customer to sign a customer service agreement. I'm not going to go too into detail of that. The rule and the PUC could explain that way better than I could. And you can request and approach folks. It can be a request. It's in their best interest to sign this, but it's not necessarily a requirement. You want to approach and say, okay, this thing allows me to look at your property to make sure you're not accidentally drinking irrigation water or your pool water or whatever crazy things are going on at that particular connection. But just think about it in your system, on the very edges of your system. Are there folks that do not have any regulations easily applied to them? What would you do as part of that follow-up? Okay, now we're going to get into customer service inspections. This is the tool we're going to use to be finding hazards in our system to follow up on and install backflow prevention or follow up in other ways. So how do we go about finding these things? Customer service inspections. I just said that. A customer service inspection certificate shall be completed in full prior to providing continuous service, existing service where there is a reason to believe there is a hazard or a cross connection there, or after any material improvement, correction, or addition to the private water distribution facility. So those are a big 3 reasons required by the TCEQ that you need to have a customer service inspection done. There we go. So who can actually do these customer service inspections? We have plumbing inspectors, folks licensed with the Texas State Board of Plumbing Examiners, as well as people endorsed by the Texas State Board of Plumbing Examiners as water supply protection specialists. This is an endorsement you can get as a master plumber, a journeyman plumber, or a plumbing inspector. It goes over the same kinds of trainings that customer service inspectors licensed by the TCEQ do. And finally, speaking of, customer service inspectors who have completed yada yada who are licensed by the TCEQ. The big takeaway there. So 3 folks can be doing these customer service inspections. So during a customer service inspection, maybe the customer service inspector found a hazard. As potential contamination hazards are discovered, they shall be promptly eliminated to prevent possible contamination of the water supply by the public water system. The existence of a health hazard. Remember, we're not going to go too much into definitions, but health hazards are things that could make you sick, spread disease, or could kill you. Really high concern things. As identified in 29047F, that's going to be our hazard appendix towards the end of Texas Administrative Code, shall be considered sufficient grounds for immediate termination. Service can only be restored when that health hazard is either removed or protected against within a sufficient backflow prevention assembly. So, just in summary, the 3 reasons that we do customer service inspections: new construction, plumbing expansion or correction, someone's building an outdoor kitchen, suspected hazards. If you suspect something's going on, a permit comes in, they have a pool installed, let's go get a customer service inspection out there. Why do we actually do CSIs? Not mention the definitions. At the end of the day, customer service inspections are required with the intent to provide or deny water service. Similar, we'll talk about plumbing inspections in a second, how they're different from that. But they're specifically looking at the plumbing from a public health perspective. They're looking at your illegal lead materials. They're looking at actual and potential hazards. They're looking at those cross connections that are out of connection. And this does include a lead swabbing test. If hopefully some of you folks were able to attend the workshop yesterday towards the end of the day, we talked about lead swabbing in a great detail where red means lead. You can't just identify that from looking at it, right? Well, maybe if it's PEX, but that's besides the point. So, in summary again, 3 licensed folks can do customer service inspections. Licensed customer service inspectors from the TCEQ, with the TCEQ, excuse me. Plumbing inspectors, licensed by Texas State Board of Plumbing Examiners, or I guess now it's TDLR, and plumbers with the Water Supply Protection Specialist endorsement. You can always look up this information on the Texas Department of Licensing and Registration website to see what people have. Record retention, not mentioned earlier, but these need to be kept for at least 10 years, and that's at least 10 years, not 9.5, boop, get it out of here, or as soon as 10 hits, get rid of it. We'll go into detail on some of the best practices when you should keep those. But this is not a plumbing inspection. Again, customer service inspectors are looking at these things from a public health perspective, those hazards, those cross connections, and they can be done at the same time by similarly licensed people. I just want you to think, can, say, a master plumber who has a water supply protection specialist endorsement, can he do the plumbing installs all the plumbing, inspects it, and can he also do the customer inspecting his own work? Ethically dubious, right? Think about something in your authority document, maybe it has to be a third party. But anyhow, so getting into some just things to think about. Where are your customer service inspections located? Who is the department, who's the guy who's handling them back at the office? Where are some locations, just thinking about the things that need to be, well, worried about. What are some places you would want to have some customer service inspections done at? Best practices, I know this sounds silly, please look at them before filing them away. Just familiarize yourself with what is on this form. The goal of the customer service inspector, to provide deny water service, looking at public health, they are there to provide you the best information for you as a water supplier to make the right decisions for protecting your system from backflow prevention. So what do all these questions mean? There's a lot of lead ban questions, there's some questions on labeling, cooling and industrial processes. Does a non-compliance necessarily constitute a failure? In some cases, no. Well, a very specific case. See, we have a lead labeling rule that would be number 5. Plumbing installed on or after January 2014 bears the expected lead label, right? But that could have been on the box. How are we going to verify that that was there if we don't have that information? It was several years ago. Are there any remarks? This is the place to talk about where you want to, what kinds of hazards there are, what kinds of things you as a water supplier need to be worried about the inspector was able to identify. Is this a current version of the form? Again, I see a lot of old versions of these forms flying around on the interwebs, and please take this down if you have those on your website. But ultimately, we're using this information to determine what does this identified hazard need, what follow-up does this connection require? Is it going to need another customer service inspection, follow-up once they've removed their hazard? Do you need to install a backflow prevention assembly on that hazard if you can't just easily remove that? So we'll also use this information to ask ourselves what are the types of backflows we need to install. This is sourced from the University of Southern California's Foundation for Cross-Connection Control and Hydraulic Research's textbook. They have a lovely flow chart just explaining what each of these backflows can do and are required in these different situations. We just want to ask ourselves 3 questions. 1, will this backflow at this connection be experiencing back pressure? Is it a direct connection? Will there be a stronger pressure downstream of that backflow than upstream that could push right back in through our distribution system? Something to think about. What is the hazard type? Is it a health hazard? Again, we know that those things are going to get you sick, they're going to spread disease, or they're going to kill you. Those are going to need some higher levels of protection, as opposed to a non-health hazard, things that are going to result in aesthetically objectionable items, things you'll get complaints about. Finally, is it under continuous pressure? Is the water always on? We need to know some backflows are not able to handle constant pressure. Atmospheric vacuum breakers, Hosebed vacuum breakers, those things cannot handle continuous pressure. If you use a hosebed vacuum breaker and you leave that water on for 8, 12 hours, like at an RV park, those things are effectively useless. They make great paperweights at that point and don't actually provide any backflow prevention. But if you don't have any customer service inspections, if you don't have an inspection program, don't fret, there's no better time to start than now or tomorrow because you're busy at the conference. You can continue to approach things requiring customer service inspections on new construction, but you can also approach suspected hazards. Just driving around, kind of what kinds of things do you see in your system? You got your pools and irrigation systems. There's a strip shopping center with a nail salon going in. Good Lord, those things are nightmares. But we always encourage folks to approach things like a triage, right? We want to make sure that the most dangerous, intense facilities that could pose a health hazard and greater to our water system. So, your medical facilities, your rendering plants, your petroleum places, and then dropping down from there, maybe some common and uncommon commercial facilities, your fire suppression systems, those nail salons again, and finally dropping down to residences with few complex hazards. So very typical things, your swimming pools, irrigation systems, making sure they have hosebed vacuum breakers installed. How can we go about finding suspected hazards? Now, this is an interesting one. When I was doing a technical assistance visit down in the San Antonio area, there was a small system that they actually got their sheriff to kind of help them identify some hazards. Of course, they're not water supply personnel, they're not licensed as inspectors, but he's driving around seeing some construction, he's asking for their permit, make sure they're permitted, and say, oh, what you building here? Oh, a gas station? We're gonna let the folks know at the water plant, make sure they know that there's some potential hazards here, or folks at the office, I should say. What facilities would you want inspected first thing tomorrow? When you drive home this afternoon or tomorrow morning, and you show up, where do you want to show up and have the customer service inspection done? So best practices for customer service inspections, record retention, we said for at least 10 years, but we highly, highly, highly suggest keeping customer service inspection forms for as long as that facility is in service. A lot of the times, we also encourage periodic customer service inspections. If you find no hazard, but there might be something that changes, this helps you kind of identify things that have changed over time, because maintain it for 10 years and then check it, that's our snapshot, and we don't always keep it. Also, we encourage folks to consider requiring customer service inspectors to register, submit the license information to you as the water purveyor. You can always review that information when you receive it on the form with the TCQ, or I should scratch that out and say TDLR, to see if that information is current, just so you don't have to go tracking down any information that the inspector should have provided in the first place. Okay, talking about backflow testing, we're keeping our system protected by making sure these backflows or air gaps are installed correctly and the backflows are functioning correctly. Just talking about some rules. All backflow prevention assemblies required according to the section and associated table, being our hazard appendix 47, shall be tested upon installation. So I got a call last week from a gentleman who does customer service inspections at a lot of new constructions. We have builders out there that are installing irrigation systems. First of all, unlicensed folks are installing those irrigation systems. That's a whole other can of worms. And also that they installed the backflow preventer and people moved into the house and they never had that thing tested when they put it in for that irrigation system. It needs to be tested upon installation. If you run into any of those problems, give me a call. We can talk about it. I know builders are a hot, touchy subject. Same rule continued. Health hazards must also be tested and certified to be operating at least annually. This doesn't mean, I did it in fiscal year 2023, I'm gonna do it in fiscal year 2024. This means if you get this sucker tested on August 1st of 2023, we'll see you again by August 1st, 2024. Recognized backflow prevention assembly testers are going to be the folks doing these tests. Who is a licensed backflow tester? These are the guys that have gone doing your tests. Thank you, everyone. But so these folks, what can they actually install on and test on? So these backflow prevention assembly testers can work on any domestic, commercial, industrial, or irrigation service backflows. The one caveat we have on this is for certain testers may test and repair assemblies on fire lines only if permanently employed by an approved fire line contractor. This is our one rule that mentions this. The State Fire Marshal's Office goes into a lot of additional detail on kind of why we have that in there. They have insurance requirements. They have registration and responsible managing employee requirements. They have their own registration requirements. So gauges, what are testers using? They're using hydraulic gauges to make sure all those little valves inside of our backflows are actually working as they should. Gauges used in the testing of backflow prevention assemblies shall be tested for accuracy annually. So once a year, you're going to get your certificate to show that your $1,000 hydraulic gauge is actually functioning correctly. And it's going to be done in accordance with the University of Southern California's standards from their cross-connect control manual and AWWA's recommended practices. Those are both very similar, if not the same, types of standards where they need to be 4 times as accurate as your gauge itself. Public water systems shall require testers to include test gauge serial numbers on test and maintenance report forms. We're going to take a look at that form and see where that information is. So please, when you get these guys, take a look at the form. I know if you're not familiar with this, it's kind of a very dense and scary form. But what are some of the things we want to see before actually accepting these things and proving that this thing is working in our system? So we want to see, is this the correct form? Again, I'm going to keep mentioning it. Some folks have the old versions of the forms listed on their websites or posted around the internet. Make sure you use what is available on our website. That is going to be the most up-to-date one from 2019. So is that the right form? What is the hazard classification? Is this the right assembly for a job? If we have a health hazard and we have a double check installed, for your FYI, double checks cannot be used in health hazard applications. They don't really have a fail-safe. So we want to make sure that what that thing was tested is good enough for this particular situation. Test results. Did this thing actually pass? We got a nice pass-fail box right there on the far left. Was this thing filled out completely? If it was not filled out completely, are there remarks, are there notes, are there something to indicate that this thing could not be completed and why? Was it actually installed correctly? Raise your hand if you've seen backflows installed upside down. Oh yeah, that is a nightmare scenario. What about horizontal backflows that were installed vertically, up and down? Yes, sir, yeah, there's some scary stuff out there. We want to make sure that this backflow was installed per manufacturer specifications as well. Is the license and gauge information current? Again, you can always go to our website and, just the TCEQ's website to determine, is this license current? Do they have all their CEUs? Are they legit and are working in my system? So please, please, please know what is in your system. All you need is an Excel spreadsheet getting started on tracking what backflows you have in your system. Just punching in, maintain what type, what make, and what model is that a connection. What's the serial number? You can track when those things get changed out. The hazard classification, the hazard type. Is it going to be a non-health hazard? What is it installed on? An irrigation system, fire suppression? What exactly are we worried about there? And also, I say Excel sheet because you could just punch in and program really easily, punch in the date of the last test, here's when the next test is due. So it kind of helps you kind of automate slightly some of that information. There are third-party record-keeping companies out there that can automate some of these processes, but you have to go through, you have to request approval from our office to actually be using those, so you're, I won't mention any industry names, but I'm sure they're out there selling to you, and they can automate some of these features. Just keep in mind a few extra steps up front. But getting into best practices, I know we talked about it, but please look at these forms. What are the remarks trying to tell you? Is this thing, does he indicate this thing is installed incorrectly? Are there some parts of the form that things aren't quite matching up? If this thing is installed on an irrigation system supplied by potable water, but the guy uses potable gauge, should we be worried about that? Did he just did he just contaminate his gauge? Potentially. And do they match previous test information? One of the things we talked about in, it was with a customer about 2 weeks ago. He was discussing how he did his annual test, same time, at least annually, and then a new serial number showed up. When did that thing get installed? We don't know when it was tested upon installation. As far as we know, it was installed. We didn't know if it was working, and now we just found out the new one was installed. We want to have that information to see, okay, did this thing fail? Do we need to follow up? Consider taking these, our backflow courses, 32-hour, 40-hour. Know what testers are actually doing. All these numbers on our form, they're gibberish until you actually can see what do each of these numbers mean. Where does it correspond on the assembly? How do they come across those readings? So just understand the results a little bit better on a technical level. In addition, we say at least these need to be kept for at least 3 years. Keep them for as long as that backflow preventer is in service. Gives you a record of how have things been going. Are there any changes over time? Best practices with testers working in your system. Consider requiring testers to register. We give them the license, but if you want to have all that information up front in your authority document, there's that authority document again, you can require folks who are going to be working in your system, okay, send me your license information, your company name, et cetera, et cetera. So I know who you are, and I have all that information up front, so I know you're legitimate working in my system. Again, authority document, tailoring your rules. This is what this is all about. So, also another thing we come across a lot with, we talk about a lot in the cross-sectional subcommittee. We talk a lot about just QA, QCing, and stress testing our program. Our testers doing those tests are some folks maybe not performing things correctly, or you see something weird on a form. To shadow one of your testers to a test. You know, hey, there's something weird going on here. I looked at the past few records. I want to see what's happening here. Tag a backflow, required to be submitted with the test. If you suspected like something like a pencil whipper, and tag that thing. If it's not submitted as part of your test form, did he really go out there? There's things to think about. It takes a lot of information for the TCEQ to look at licenses and kind of pursue them if it comes down to that. But if you have a bad player in your system, you are the first line of defense who can actually go after them and stop them from working in your system. So just when you think about who are the guys with your test forms in the office, is it you? Is it someone else? Is it another department? Are they easily searchable? That Excel sheet, you just punch that right in, pull up the connection you need to go, and you'll pull up all that information. What assemblies are in your system? Do you have a list? Again, if you don't have that, start keeping track of it. Know what's in your system so you can actually, follow up on it. If there's a health hazard that goes unnoticed for years, that's when you can stop and say, okay, hey, where's the rest of these? Have you ever seen some strange results or discrepancies? I talked about a tester using a potable gauge on a non-potable line, and now he has a non-potable gauge. So you want to take a look at, make sure you're not using such types of things on potable lines that could potentially contaminate during a test. So other considerations, other things to think about. What are some of the things we could think about, include in our program and our authority documents to help support our backflow program and get things up and running? Emergency response plans. What do we do in an emergency? Oh my goodness, I don't have time to talk about that. In fact, a few years ago, we actually discussed at the PDW conference into how to prepare for and respond to a backflow event, because they're their own very in-depth topics. Remember, it's not a matter of if, it's going to be a matter of when. We want to be prepared for these, and we do have some guidance to help support that. But if I were to summarize all of those materials, in one sentence, knowing what is in your system is absolutely critical to responding to an event. Where are your lines, those things that just got contaminated? Where are some of those hazards that you've identified have a backflow preventer, but oh no, we just noticed that there hasn't been a test done recently? Where are your isolating valves? You start getting complaints in a certain area, oh my goodness, it could be a backflow event. How are you going to isolate those valves? Are you exercising those valves? Are they still working? Can you access them? What hazards are out there that, if you're able to indicate what hazards are, what kinds of connections, I can kind of give your folks say, okay, there's a soapy taste. Oh, that might be something like that could be a soap, that could be a pesticide. That could be something to follow up and help identify. But definitely give us a call. If you ever have any issues with these things, please give us a call. We are here to assist with those emergency events, and we should have our old discussions and presentations about these posted on the TCEQ YouTube page. I'll double check that. So running a program, the 3 C's, we love hearing about that. Communication, coordination, cooperation. I want to specifically emphasize interdepartmental communications, right? All these folks have a stake in backflow. And I want you to think about who else in my system has a stake in backflow. Your plumbing department, the guys that are getting some things installed and some things inspected and can actually do these customer service inspections in some cases. Your permits department, who are the guys that are getting notification that there are hazards being installed in your system. City, utility, and district managers coordinating everyone and talking to everyone. The fire department, and the fire marshal. These are the folks who regulate those fire lines. They are going to be the ones who allow and approve, say, a additional foam fire suppression system used on a fire truck. That could, and we have seen in the past few years, those types of events where after a fire at an apartment complex down the street, we have foamy water. We do not want to be seeing that, right? So we want to make sure we include him and he understands why we should be worried about such injection materials and chemicals. Water department personnel, the folks regulated with the TCEQ. And front desk staff, I want to emphasize this because if you are going to have a backflow event, or if you're going to have any questions, why am I being required to have a backflow? This is going to be the person who receives who's going to get the front lines of, okay, let me explain. This is why we're requiring this, or oh, hey, that sounds like an issue. Let's raise a flag and potentially follow up on an issue. Who would benefit from backflow training? I think front desk staff is a big deal who could kind of help explain the basics to customers as to why we need this and why we're worried. I also want you to think, outside of these departments, who else is involved? And again, how would these departments be involved outside of some of the things we talked about here? Developing a backflow committee, best practice, please. This is the best idea I've read about. We just get together with some of the folks in your system and discuss backflow from all these different lenses. Your perspective is going to be different from my perspective as a state regulator. So we have lots of just different views so we can improve a backflow system. So program administrator, who's the guy who's running the show? We want to include him, make sure they're the ones who are operating things. The water department manager, also managed by the regulated by the TCEQ. A plumbing inspector or local plumbers. Who are the guys that are inspecting these, installing these? Again, our fire marshal. What kinds of chemicals is he allowing in our system and why? Again, explain, hey, we need to talk about this and why we're worried about it. Management or council or board members. So a lot of the times, you might get some pushback from your local managing body and local government folks, but get them on board. Explain why we're worried about this. This isn't a cost we're trying to make people pay. This is something we are trying to protect our system and their health from potential adverse events. And include a local irrigator. The guys that are installing all those pesky hazards out in your system understand it's important to have these backflows on them, and the correct one as well. Customer service, public outreach and education is a huge deal. People don't understand backflow. Every time I talk about what I do for the TCEQ, my parents, their eyes glaze over, and I don't blame them. They don't deal with backflow or plumbing every day. And a lot of their exposure is going to be, okay, well, what's this additional thing on my bill? Why do I have to pay for this additional thing? It's not about going after them. It's here to support their health as well as the rest of their neighbors in the distribution system. Because at the end of the day, public health is our goal. Who's going to get exposed to that backflow event first? It's going to be that neighbor with the irrigation system, that neighbor who was filling his pool that one time. In addition, we have tons and tons of hazardous consumer products that are just out there in the system. You can buy one of these little fertilizer doodads just at Walmart. Those things are considered health hazards. Fertilizer and chemical injection, if you're getting blue ice cubes, is it going to be our toilet bowl cleaner that we have in our tank, or could it be something outside in our garden? Don't get me started on bidets. They are my nightmare. After the pandemic, everyone's like, oh, we have the best solution. That's a health hazard right there. If you're leaving that thing sitting in the toilet bowl, ew. You want to make sure that thing is protected against. But okay, just want to quickly touch on some resources available. I know we're kind of running a little short on time, but we do have tons and tons of resources. Our entire program is here to assist with developing your program and keeping everyone protected and maintaining public health. So to support that, we have tons of internal resources. You can pull all of this stuff on our website. I do just want to specifically outline RG 478. We're currently revising it. We're hopefully towards the finish line on that. Establishing and managing an effective cross-connection control program, a compendium of all of the rules that we have related to backflow, as well as a plain English discussion on some of these best practices we've already touched on. Definitely, highly would recommend. And again, you can get all these on our website. Feel free to email me at the end of this, and I can get you these documentations. External publications. So outside of the TCQ, we also have a couple of things that would be great to have within as a reference for your system. So protection for post-mix carbonators. Who loves soda machines? No one raise your hand. I don't want There is a great document from the University of Southern California discussing the backflow prevention required on soda machines and what some of those restrictions are. So it goes into a lot of detail, especially when you're trying to enforce backflows on soda machines. Also, two great manuals. This is the stuff that we use to write our rules. The Manual of Cross Connection from the University of Southern California. Textbook that you get with your tester class. absolute great reference going into a lot of the details and the technicals, as well as recommended practices for backflow prevention and cross-connection control. This is the 4th edition linked here. I just learned that there's a brand spanking new 5th edition coming out pretty soon. As well, we can also reference approved backflow preventers from the USC on their website. But if you don't like reading, that's okay. We also have some one-on-one assistance through the TCQ, the small business and local government assistance folks, as well as our TCQ financial, managerial, and technical assistance folks. It's free one-on-one assistance for small business. It's confidential and also can help you with some other programs. Things like petroleum storage tanks, landfills, air emissions, if that's something that comes up in your city, as well as, and for FMT, this can help with both water and wastewater programs. We have an assignment here that actually goes into detail about how to start a backflow program if this presentation was a little too much in one sitting. So absolutely, feel free to reach out. A cross-connection control subcommittee meeting. We have these things quarterly. We just get together with industry pros, professionals, training providers, the regulated folks, the general public, PWS staff, everyone. We just get together and talk about what is going on in the industry, what is going on in our systems, and what are some things we need to be prepared for in terms of rules and preventing things that we need to address. This is held in our office, but also is offered remotely. If you want to be on the mailing list for this, please just send me an email. I will get you signed up. So. Thank you. That was a lot of information, and I appreciate y'all's patience, but if anything, you run into anything, I want to hear from you. Please, I am here to assist you as best as I can. When you run into backflow issues, that is my one job here. So thank you so much. I'll take any questions if you got any, too. So.